So, in my personal experience, when it comes to suicide awareness, when it comes to suicidal ideation, mm, okay, where do we start? I, for the most part, I was always a very happy person. It's the pain of the world that always gets me down. I've always been, for the most part, in very safe situations, taken care of. My parents always made sure that we had a roof over our heads and food on the table. And I think seeing their struggle is really what also motivated me to make sure that they don't have to struggle like that. I think seeing their struggle made me appreciate the little things more. It humbled me like crazy. But yeah. So my suicidal ideation, I've always kind of thought about death. Being between the ages of 4 and 8, we had the Bosnian-Serbian War. So for me, I've just always seen death, violence. I was very accustomed to it at a very young age. So it was almost like my brain was programmed to have death as almost like an immediate response. And that isn't healthy. When I was about 14, 15, my grandmother and my aunt passed away. And these are the two people that I was closest to. One passed away in January and one passed around June later that year. And when they passed, I was like, all right, that's it. I'm done. I don't care. I just want to live my life. I just want to die in peace and that be that. Throughout high school, after they passed, I just started getting more angry. I was so angry. I was angry at everything. I was angry at existing. I was angry at people who didn't see the truth. I was angry at people who made other children cry. I was angry that I could hear children crying. I was angry that I could see the evils of the world. It was like God was showing me everything that was happening on earth, whether I liked it or not. And then through my early 20s, after I studied marketing, one of the last lessons I studied in marketing was, I don't think my teacher definitely didn't know I was a war child, and I do feel like this was something that Spirit was like, you have to hear this. But basically, my teacher in one of my last classes, in one of my last lessons, said, war is always for profit. And then he proceeded to explain how it's always for profit. And that was kind of like one of my first heartbreaks, because it made me realize that people didn't care that I was in a war. It was almost like they wanted certain people to exist in a war so that they could make money off of their manufactured weapons. The world always goes into some sort of recession because of a war. There was also Syria when I had moved to Toronto. Syria was just starting to hit the news, but more so on Facebook. Media wasn't totally covering it, but it was all over my Facebook. And I remember thinking, how shitty is it that nobody gives a fuck about all of these people that are currently dying in Syria? Nobody cares. Because one thing that the Americas and the capitalism is very good at is hiding the truth so it works in their favor. So I remember thinking, I just want everybody to see the horrors on this earth. I want everybody to be on their phone, and instead of being distracted, I want the truth in their faces. And like I said, I was very angry. I remember writing a letter in my head, writing my goodbyes, thinking about how my family would react if I had died. And then I remember, like, I was thinking about how I would off myself. And I had a few ideas, but there was never anything that I could do to myself. And I always thought that's pretty weak. You want to be off this planet, you can't even do it yourself. How lame. That was my thought process. So I started putting myself in dangerous situations. Now I'm 20, early 20s. I'm not 25 yet, but I'm like 22, 23, by myself in downtown Toronto. I lived in the GTA, and I would put myself in awful situations where there were a lot of like drug activity. So there's a lot of people who can't think rationally, could have easily gotten robbed. I would cross the street carelessly, busy intersections, I would jaywalk, like literally anything I could think of to put myself in a situation where somebody else could end my life, I would do it. And I remember begging God to take me off this planet. And that was actually my first interaction with the Galactic Federation. I don't know a lot about the Galactic Federation. I know from my personal spiritual journey, it is very important that I stay close to the human experience and not allow my head to go off into the planets and the cosmos. Even though I'm capable of that, it is very important for me to be grounded in the human experience. But around that time, with the Galactic Federation, and I don't know if this was like aliens in the sky who are in charge of this Earthback mission, or if it was my soul family. You know how Neo and Trinity in the Matrix, how they're like plugged in to these machines, and then their conscious goes into the Matrix. It felt a lot like that. It felt like I was with my soul family versus a bunch of aliens. Although I do feel like my soul family is a bunch of aliens. But anyways, it felt like I remember being in a ship, and I remember looking down at Earth. And I remember some of the conversations that I had with the people in space, the Galactic Federation. And then I remember certain spirit guides of mine, they would take me, this was through astral projection, through astral dreaming. They would take me to see the after effects of Earth. All they would say was, we need 10 more years. You need to stay for 10 more years. And I remember replying back to them, fine, but you only get 10 more years. And then after that, I want to be off of this planet. And honestly, then at that time, it was like, why am I having such crazy dreams? And I will say that a lot of my dreams, I felt like I was living a different life. I felt like while I was asleep in this life, I felt like I was awake in another life. Like I was exhausted, I barely slept, the dreams were so intense, and the only way I can explain it is that I was living a different dimension, is that I was astrally projecting either into a completely different timeline or a completely different dimension. I have no idea. But during that time, I got to, like, a lot of spiritual stuff happened. Stuff that I'm just now starting to kind of cipher through and figure out. But one thing, 10 years later, I struggled with suicidal ideation for a long time. And I knew I made a promise to God that I would stay here, and in 10 years he would seek me out himself. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to say that is because there is some sort of energy harnessing that works with suicide. If you're a very spiritual person, and you do think about suicide, you have suicidal ideation, please understand that those are probably shadows trying to keep your energy on this earth. when you commit suicide, you don't actually get free. There's like an energetic chain that you end up being attached to. And whoever's in charge of Earth and harnessing Earth, the energy on Earth, is going to have your energy harvested. I don't know all of the details on that. That was just kind of one of the conversations I had with the Galactic Federation at that time. So suicide is very tricky, and a lot of us that feel suicidal, it's usually because we feel the pain of the world. It's not just our pain. It's pain from people that we've never met before, that we'll probably never meet again. And it's the pain of how the world is run. It makes you feel sick and disgusted with how evil the world really is. Yeah. So for everyone that's struggling, this is me almost a full 10 years later. And I am happy that I stayed. I'm very happy. It was